Open Your Eyes is brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.
Good morning. Welcome to Open Your Eyes.
Start your morning right.
I'm Marlene Cuellar.
And I'm Isani Ketan.
And thank you for joining us this morning.
It's back to work.
That's right. It has been an extended weekend, 4 days. For those of you who have to report to work today, it's going to be a bit of a tough one, but don't worry. It's a short week ahead. And of course, we have to get back to business. That's just what it is.
After 4 days, Marlene, it's time for us to get back into the thick of things. As we've mentioned, it's a short week, so we're looking forward to another extended weekend coming up in the next few days, which is good.
Yeah.
We bring in 2021 by week's end.
Of course, of course. How was your Christmas?
I can't complain.
Yeah.
I can say I'm well rested, one. Two, I've done enough eating and drinking for the past 4 days. I've gorged on all the food and drinks that are available. I'm good. I'm contented.
That's right. It was definitely a different Christmas, but quite enjoyable, just all the downtime that you have rather than moving around and all the visits that you would typically do around this time. Usually you come back from Christmas break tired because of all the activities, but this time I do feel well rested too.
The 8 o'clock curfew kind of, made sure that we didn't overdo on a day-to-day basis, right? With friends and family.
And I think a couple times drove around the city and saw that it seems that most people were just quietly at home. You didn't see many people moving around once Christmas Day came around. Christmas Eve was a different story, of course. But from Christmas Day onward, it was very mellow. People seemed to be just staying at home.
Well, going back to Christmas Eve, the hustle and bustle for me, it was Albert Street, right? To see people out there still trying to, get that last minute item onto their shopping list before 8 o'clock was quite an interesting one. Long lines of people standing outside of stores waiting their turn and that sort of stuff. Yeah, a different Christmas this time around.
Of course. And we do hope for you or viewers that you did have an enjoyable Christmas. As we all acknowledge, it was a very different one given the context of the time that we're in. We do hope you still found some quality time with your loved ones and that you made some great memories as well. But even better than that, we got a wonderful weather for the weekend as well. The cold front came in just in time for Christmas.
Marlene, I sat on this chair a week or so ago, last Monday. And when we had the forecast for the 5 days that led up to Christmas, I kept saying, well, weather is unpredictable. And sometimes we forecast what the patterns will be and what have you, and that's not necessarily what happens. But the weather report last week was spot on. It rained to bring in the cold front on Christmas Day. It was fairly cooler or chilly, which was good. I can't complain there. But the weather yesterday was a bit kind of off.
Yesterday, you had the rains to let you know that it was coming to an end. This morning, it's still chilly. But let's get into our weather report for today, and we'll find out what we can expect. So the general situation is for mainly fair weather conditions expected during the next few days.
The 24-hour forecast calls for skies that will be sunny with some cloudy spells and isolated showers developing.
All right, our winds are going to be moving from the east to the northeast at 10 to 20 knots, and the sea state is moderate to rough. So there is a small craft caution in effect for occasionally rough seas. So
the outlook is for mainly fair conditions with only isolated showers expected for Wednesday and Wednesday night.
All right, but for today, our highs are going to be 79 along the coast, 81 inland, and 70 in the hills.
And our lows tonight are 72 degrees along the coast, 64 degrees Fahrenheit inland, and 59 degrees Fahrenheit in the hills.
All right, and we want to thank forecaster Crystal Rosales for that update. It's still going to be a cool day today.
Yes, it is.
Right? Going to keep things moving this morning with some motivation, and that means it's time for our Eye Opener. And our Eye Opener, taken from dailyom.com, goes like this. The question of whether we or anyone else deserves something is not really in our jurisdiction. We all know what it's like to finally get something we want, only to find ourselves feeling as if we don't deserve it. Whether it's a car, a new job, or a date with someone wonderful, we suddenly feel as if we are not up to it. Something in us wants to reject this gift from the universe, perhaps because it requires that we think of ourselves in a new way, or makes us question why we should have something that others don't have. If these feelings of unworthiness are not consciously acknowledged, they can lead us to sabotage ourselves out of the gift being offered. Perhaps the best way to avoid rejection and sabotage is to simply shift into a state of gratitude by passing the question of worthiness altogether. When we receive a gift and find that feelings of unworthiness crop up, we can simply acknowledge the feelings and then remind ourselves that they are beside the point. We might say to ourselves, I am meant to have this. As we allow ourselves to accept the gift, we might feel tenderness in our hearts that naturally shift into a deep feeling of gratitude. As we sit for a moment, consciously holding the gift in our hands or in our hearts, we say yes to the universe's many blessings, and we also say thank you.
All right, so this one for me is rather straightforward. Personally, I don't often ask for anything. I'm not one that really, asks for much. And so I've always been, I'd say, like a perpetually grateful person for everything that happens, good and bad. If it's a gift, if it's something that I've worked hard for, I'm always grateful for the experience. I'm always grateful for the assistance if it's other people who are around me that are helping me. And if it's something that is completely unforeseen or unexpected that comes my way in a positive way, I'm all the more grateful. So the idea of gratitude comes not only from within oneself, but the fact that there are other people who you interact with or you engage with that allow you to be able to experience the joy of gift giving, for instance, or experience the joy of companionship. And that for me is reason enough to be grateful, for one to express some kind of gratitude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, when you think about the eye opener this morning, it's like kind of the opposite of entitlement. There are people who just kind of believe they deserve everything, and then there are people who feel like everything that comes their way is not justified. And I think for me, the opening quote really seals it. It's not for us to decide whether or not what is given to us or what blessings we have received, whether we're worthy of them, whether we deserve them, sometimes whether it's the right time. And, it can be very challenging. And if you think of it from physical gifts to compliments, which are really hard for many of us to receive, to even different opportunities, you can spend a lot of time second guessing the why. But I love that it kind of tries to get you to move away from trying to decipher whether or not you deserve it and just moving to that place of gratitude. Yeah. And it's a really important mental shift that has to happen. Otherwise, you keep on, if it's a compliment, you know what people do when they don't accept compliments, or it's an opportunity, you're not making the most of it either. So I think today's eye-opener will resonate with many people. And, if you struggle in this particular area, then just try to accept the gifts that you have been given and allow yourself to say thank you. All right?
That's it.
So that is the eye-opener for this morning. And it is a Tuesday morning. We're going to do or catch up on what are the big news items out of last week and what we can look forward to in the week ahead. So let's shift gears to Eye on the News.
So on Thursday of last week, I got to make sure I get that correct.
Yeah.
On Thursday of last week, we had an interview with the Minister of Agriculture, the Honorable Jose Abelardo Mai. And the interview had to do with the sugar industry and when the crop season actually begins. Now, there was a bit of an issue in respect of when the crop season would begin based on certain factors that are affecting the industry as it is, right? And that's just kind of prefacing what the issue is and why there is a delay. I think there are economic consequences that were being raised should they open on the scheduled time, right? Nonetheless, there was a meeting over the weekend, and out of that particular meeting comes an update from the Sugar Industry Control Board, which held a special meeting over the weekend to provide a revised crop production estimate. So I'll read verbatim from what the release says, and then we could discuss a bit more what it means to the average farmer and for sugar production. It says here, the Sugar Industry Control Board, the SICB, held a special meeting on Sunday, December 27th to discuss and review production estimates for crop 2020-2021 that had been previously presented by the Sugarcane Production Committee. The meeting was held due to concerns that more than 2,700 cane farmers, which is approximately 50% of the existing cane farmers, would be negatively impacted by the previous production estimates, resulting in significant losses in tonnage of cane delivered to the factory. Cane farmers had raised concerns about this issue and had indicated that they were not willing to start the crop season with the estimates as previously presented and would hold protests to make their concerns heard. As a result, the meeting was called as a fulfillment of the government of Belize's promise to listen and work closely with farmers to ensure the productive sector is assisted as much as possible. The meeting was attended by 6 of the 11 directors of the SICB, constituting a quorum for the meeting, though it is noted that neither ASR-BSI nor Progressive Sugarcane Producers Association or the Corozal Sugarcane Producers Association sent representation to the meeting. The motion to discuss and review the production estimates was tabled and passed, and as a result, the chairman of the Sugar Industry Control Board, Mr. Marcos Osorio, has instructed the manager of the Sugarcane Production Committee to implement the adjustments agreed on during the meeting. The adjustments to the production estimates approved at the meeting ensure that cane farmers will not be impacted as negatively as before, with the same losses in tonnage of cane delivered to the factory. The SICB chairman also has mandated that the date for the beginning of the grinding season be gazetted as per the Sugar Cane Act. All stakeholders will now receive production estimates and implement adjustments. It is hoped that the sugarcane crop has a smooth start for 2020-2021. So that's the release coming from the SICB in respect of the issues that we're mentioning are or stand to affect cane farmers in the north. Now, what is interesting here, Marlene, is that the miller, ASR-BSI, was absent from that particular sit-down, and that company is very instrumental in the entire sugar industry in terms of the production output. As you would appreciate, you have farmers who deliver sugarcane to the factory at Tower Hill, and then the company then proceeds with the actual milling to produce different forms of sugar and other byproducts. So the fact that they were not at the table, to me, is something significant, and perhaps we should be getting word from ASR-BSI as to why they were not present for the meeting. Yeah. There were also 2 other organizations, and you would also realize that several years ago, the Belize Sugarcane Farmers Association was split up into other associations of cane farmers. Yeah. And so out of that number of associations that represent farmers and their interests in the industry, 2 were also missing from that particular meeting. And the fact that they did, in fact, have or meet quorum, were able to make certain decisions that would now stand in place of what was being estimated before, that would have affected the farmers in terms of losses.
Yeah, yeah. It is interesting. You know, it is not uncommon that we see challenges with the opening or closing of the crop season for sugar. It is usually very difficult to be able to reach an agreement where everyone is satisfied. And if you look at the particular arrangement that is in place, where you look at the millers having a stake, the farmers, independent of that, some of them form parts of different associations with representatives who make decisions on their behalf. It is always a challenge, but I think when we move away from kind of looking at the breakdown of the industry itself, we have to think about how important this is for our economy at this time. Yeah. We know that we are in dire economic situation, and that we have to ensure that we can be able to earn as much as possible this year around. Now, there have been some weather issues, and I don't know how much that has affected the crop. But the issue here, as you're quite rightly pointing out, is whether the decisions that were made over the weekend is one that you can say is accepted across the board. We don't know the answer to that. I note that in the release that you read, they said there were no representatives of ASR, BSI, or one of the associations. Now, was that they weren't invited? Or is it that they chose not to participate? That's a very important question to get answered here, because there's a difference as well. So, you know, I do hope that this particular crop season will be a lucrative one. We know we face challenges globally in terms of market access and getting a good price. And so it's so important that we can have our product together and face the external challenges rather than getting stuck at just the output portion.
And of course, this is one of our chief industries where thousands of persons are employed, and this is one of the revenue generators for the company, for the country in terms of the economy.
Of course.
What the sugar industry means for, you know, our livelihood and those of the persons who are directly invested.
And especially for the North. Yeah. So, of course, this will be something that we will keep on following.
Yeah. So that was the main thing that I wanted to discuss this morning. There's a bit of some good news in respect of COVID numbers. We are seeing, perhaps for the first time in several weeks, that there has been somewhat of a downturn in the number of cases being reported and those that are active. At last check, I saw that we were below 1,000.
Active cases.
Active cases, that is, yes. And so that is something that we are cautiously optimistic about in terms of the decrease in the number of cases at the moment.
Yeah. Yesterday there were only 30 new confirmed cases. And as you note, 926 active cases at this time. This is a very significant drop in what we were seeing for the weeks leading up to Christmas. We are at over 10,000 total cases. Now, one of the things I think that you can clearly, I would imagine, has impacted this is that I think it was a bit over a week ago that the acting director of health services had sent out a memo saying that people can be declared recovered after 14 days without getting a negative test. And that is, as they have noted, a part of the recommendation by the World Health Organization that people can return to work and be declared recovered. So in seeing the total recoveries that we have and the lessening in the total active cases, that is one of the reasons we may speculate that we're seeing this drop at this time.
And we have to put this significant drop in the context of the travel advisory that was issued by the CDC, the United States government, a few weeks or so ago, or sometime last week, if I'm not mistaken, it was at a time where, you know, the numbers were somewhat at a peak. Now we've seen a considerable downturn. So what bearing, if any, that has on persons visiting the country for leisure is something that we need to look forward to. But we'll have that discussion a bit later on as well.
That's an interesting point to note, whether there would be change in that advisory. Yeah. Well, we do have to keep on monitoring. I think if we have been paying, for those of us who have been paying attention very closely to how our numbers fluctuate, I think I read or I heard someone mention, you know, for Belize, it's not so much about a curve. We're not seeing a spike up and a spike down. We just see periodic spikes. And, you know, they go through intervals. You see a particular event take place, and then you see an increase one week, 1.5 weeks to 2 weeks later. And that, of course, depends on how much they've cleared up the backlog of the test as well. Because at one point, it was as long as, well, we have had people tell us right here on the show that they've waited as long as 13, 14 days to get their PCR results. So you know, I think a lot of people have speculated that perhaps all the activities around Christmas may lead to another spike. But we do know that there were implementations of tougher restrictions across the country, and specifically in some of the hot zones. So let's hope that in 2 weeks' time from now, we won't be seeing that spike. Let's hope everyone took the precautions that were necessary, and that the increased regulations will, in fact, keep us with lower numbers.
Well, hence the reason we're saying cautiously optimistic, right?
Yeah.
Because we're still on a wait and see to see if the numbers continue to go down or they will go up somewhat. We will see.
It almost feels like when the numbers go down that people get more comfortable too. And I think that's why we have to be very wary when we report it, because not because it goes down means that you can loosen up on all the protective measures that you have been taking, because it still is a very active virus. We know it's very much contagious. There's all this talk of the new UK strain and implications there as to what that means. They've detected it in countries outside of the UK, and we do know that it's highly infectious. We spoke with the Minister of Health last week. They said they would look into trying to identify the type of strains that we do have in the country, because we don't have the capacity to test for that.
Well, that would be an interesting one in terms of, you know, the travel industry, and if, how, and when there will be an introduction of a new strain in the country and what effects that will have. But I wouldn't want to say or sort of dismiss it as that will be down the road somewhere, because our travel industry is very much active, and you have people from all over the world who are coming to Belize either for business or for pleasure. And with the increased number of flights at the PJIA, for instance, you never know. So it's like I said, it will be something that we need to actively look out for, the Ministry of Health that is, and to report on whether or not there is an introduction of that particular strain in the country.
Of course, of course.
So that concludes our Eye on the News this morning. As I mentioned, it's been an extended weekend, so we'll have much more to report on in terms of catching up with everything that has happened over the past 4 days. Nonetheless, you can join us at 6 o'clock on Channel 5 to get the live news, and of course you can stream on Facebook as well this evening at 6 o'clock.
All right, now it's time for us to get ready to move into our show for today.
This morning we're going to have a two-part conversation, and we're looking at the effects of COVID on Belize's high season in the tourism industry. So that would be our interesting segue from our Eye on the News conversation to actually looking at what the effect of it, the impact of it has been, and what we can look forward to in the next few months as we go into the high season.
All right. And the second part of our show, we're going to have a photographer and his team talking to us about an interesting project that he's been working on in 2020. And he is launching the top 100 women of worth in Belize, and that is by life and fashion photography. So we'll get all the details about that in the final segment of our show.
All right. So before we go to our commercial break this morning, we have a birthday shout out. And I will be the first to say happy birthday to Justin. What is it? I'm trying to get the last name correct. Help me here.
Vechaim?
Justin Vechaim.
Yes.
Right.
All right. Do have a great day, Justin. Of course, that greeting comes from all of us here at Channel 5 and Open Your Eyes. It's a short week, so you can get your celebration started in just a few days. All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, we'll be moving into our first conversation for today, our COVID-19 update, talking about tourism in Belize. Please stay tuned.
In these challenging times, the one thing that is certain is that the Belize Bank Limited is here for you. There is nothing more important than your health and safety, and we continue to make every effort to make banking safer for you. Our staff is working around the clock to make sure you can do your banking conveniently 24/7 using our mobile banking app and online banking and keeping ATMs up and running. We value your relationship with us and are here to provide the support you need. First responders are also out there 24/7. Thank you, healthcare workers, security forces, firefighters, caregivers. You are all appreciated. Stay safe. We will get through this together. The Belize Bank, our country, your bank.
Todos estamos en riesgo de contraer la COVID-19, por lo que es importante reconocer rápidamente los signos y síntomas de la infección. Los síntomas más comunes son fiebre, tos seca y cansancio o fatiga. Algunas personas también pueden tener dolor de garganta, dolores y molestias, congestión nasal o diarrea. Pero algunas personas también han reportado conjuntivitis, dolor de cabeza, pérdida de sabor u olor, sarpullido en la piel o un cambio en el color de los dedos de las manos o los pies. Los signos de alarma de emergencia que requieren atención médica inmediata son dificultad extrema para respirar, dolor constante y severo o presión en el pecho, confusión, dificultad para hablar o moverse, labios, rostro, dedos de las manos o de los pies azulados. Para mayor información, llame al 0800-664-2273. Protejamos nuestra salud.
It's a fact that your credit lasts longer when using Smart. During these times, we're all trying to find ways to cut costs and save the little resources we have. With Smart, it's easy to do that. It's a fact that with Smart, your credit lasts longer. You can call Smart to Smart and Smart to Digi using your promo credit, while with the other guy, you can only call OnNet, Digi, or BTL numbers. What does this mean? You get to call any national number using your promo credit. Your promo credit is free, so that call is also free. Know your facts. Don't be tricked by the other guy. Be smart and save your dollars.
Have a holly jolly Christmas this December with NextGen. Contact us today to sign up for free service installation or reconnection and receive 1 month free on your acquired service. Celebrate the spirit of the season by entering our grand raffle. This month, new and existing customers can enter a chance to win a 40-inch smart TV or up to 3 months free bundled service with a Debo 3. Visit our office for a chance to win today. Our raffle will be drawn live on the national channel. From our NextGen family to yours, we wish you peace and joy throughout the Christmas season. NextGen, powered by Central TV and Internet.
Technology is ubiquitous, and it's transforming how, when, and where we work. Fulltech Systems is placing award-winning devices in the hands of information workers, allowing them to work without compromise in a world without wires, to innovate, create, and to maximize productivity anytime, anywhere, satisfying the needs of the desk-centric remote and field worker and every other worker in between. We are providing the industry's best devices to businesses going through the process of digital transformation. Partner with us today to provide the solutions that will allow your employees to work effectively and efficiently to enhance your customers' experience. Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service.
Why, Tony?
Boy, kid, what you going on, man?
I actually come see you because I need to buy a stack of them plastic plates and cups for my grocery shop because I run low.
Boy, I stopped importing that thing since April 15th, you know. And I just ran out of the last batch, must have been like 3 weeks back, you know.
Man, do I usually have anything? What is going on?
Check this, right? Under the new law, we ban all single-use plastics, so that the cups, plates, forks, spoons, and knives, all of that. Since April 15th, can't import none of them. Starting January 15, 2021, you can't manufacture them. April 15, 2021, you can't sell them. And after July 14, 2021, if you get catch with any other thing, you will get fined.
Me never know this. I guess I have to make some changes then. I have to make the customers know that anything not available. Anyways, bro. Thanks, man.
No problem, man. Take care.
The virus that causes COVID-19 may be spreading in our community. People might have the disease even if they have no symptoms at all, even when they look healthy. Because the virus needs us to spread from one person to another, we can stop it from infecting others if we practice physical distancing. That means stay at least 6 feet away from other persons. Don't shake hands or exchange hugs. Do not gather in groups. Stay home if government officials tell you to do so. Use social media or telephone to communicate. Avoid crowded and enclosed spaces. Work from home if you can. Stay home if you are sick, except to get medical care. Avoid close contact with sick people. Don't visit anyone who's sick in quarantine or in isolation. Give them a call instead. Help keep Belize safe.
Today's COVID update is brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service.
And welcome back. As we mentioned just prior to the commercial break, we will be discussing the effect of COVID-19 on the tourism industry, particularly during this high season. We have with us via Zoom the president of the Belize Tourism Industry Association, the BTIA, none other than Stuart Crone. Good morning, Mr. Crone.
Good morning, Isani. Good morning, Marlene. Nice to see you guys.
Same here. All right, so now this is a very broad topic to begin with, in respect of tourism and the impact of the pandemic on our local tourism economy. First of all, let's begin with the reopening of the Philip Goldson International Airport back in October, and perhaps what numbers or what the arrivals have been looking like in terms of visitors to Belize and their access to our various destinations and the industry on a whole.
Well, I mean, it's all relative, of course. Having the airport open was a great improvement. But it really started as only a trickle of tourists, and to tell you the truth, it's the number of arrivals, business has improved somewhat. November was better than October, and December is somewhat better than November. But in terms of absolute numbers, when you compare the state of the industry today, this should be the very peak of our season for this period. It's just a shadow of what was a year ago. Maybe it's 10-15% of what it was a year ago. I mean, it varies from destination to destination and property to property, but you still have a lot of hotels, tour operators, restaurants that are still closed, that never did open. They closed in March and they never did open back. So it's a little dodgy to try and use statistics, but overall, there's no one in the industry who will tell you things are good, because they're not good.
Yeah. Has this prompted you guys to look at marketing your various properties in different ways to attract visitors? I mean, notwithstanding the pandemic situation?
Well, I mean, everyone in the industry, and again, when I talk about the industry, it's not just hotels. It's hotels, tour operators, it's tour guides, it's restaurants, it's associated services. Everyone's affected. But, this pandemic, it's not like there was a handbook that had how to deal with a global pandemic. Everyone tried their own methods, and there is no one method that happened to be superior to all others, because you're dealing with a lot of different problems at once. Number one problem when the pandemic hit was, how do you deal with all the people who cannot come and want refunds? Well, if you're a hotel or a tour operator, especially, because these are two areas where people tend to pay in advance, and you're suddenly besieged by dozens of requests, people want their money back. They don't want their money back in Belize dollars. They want their money back in US dollars. That's a big hurdle to overcome. So that's the first problem that faced the industry. And if you manage to get that solved, and some did and some didn't, by making offers that people would postpone their trips rather than cancel the trips, you still had to deal with the issues of, now you've got no one in your tour van or your tour boat, and you've got no one in your hotel. You still got your bills to pay, you've got your bank to pay. So yeah, it's a whole host of problems. It's not just one problem that business people and their employees are dealing with.
So let's, when the tourism industry came to just a complete halt, and I've always made the note that, in fact, you guys started to feel the impact long before we even had the first case of COVID-19. There were all sorts of projections, and as you clearly said, there is no way of really knowing how this rebound will look and how long it will take. But from what you are currently seeing, do you feel optimistic that 2021 there will be more of a steady stream of tourists coming in, just based on what you've seen in the past 3 months?
The answer is yes. I mean, we've been pessimistic for so long that we have to allow for some optimism. I mean, remember, the greatest feature of this pandemic has been that there is so much, A, that we don't know, and B, so much that we cannot control. So the one biggest reason for optimism is the development of the vaccine. And yes, forgetting about our own domestic situation for a minute, the more people in our target markets, let us say for the moment, North America, the more people in North America that are vaccinated, the less fear they will have to travel. So more people willing to travel means more people coming to Belize and other destinations. So we have to be optimistic there. As to when that optimism will turn into actual business for us, you have to think that it will increase gradually. It would be nice if we got a pickup in our traditional winter months, January, February, March, April. Trying to predict, though, I think we're looking probably at May, June before we see large numbers of people willing to travel. And this may be good for us because there's a huge pent-up demand for travel in North America. depending on what the school situation is there, there could be a lot of family travel, and a lot of that family travel may come to Belize. So in terms of advice for the industry, I think we'd want to gear up our marketing efforts for the summer season. But as you said, we have to market for that. So I think at the ETB level, at the ministry level, and at the private sector level, the best thing, because we don't have a lot of resources, we need to join up. We need to team up together to make the few dollars that we have go further when it comes to a marketing campaign.
I think that's an interesting point, and help me understand that further as to where you are with collaboration. From what we've seen, the marketing efforts have been on varying levels. You've seen the Belize Tourism Board have their own marketing plan geared to international tourists. You have the different associations. BTIA has their own marketing strategy, as well as the Belize Hotel Association, and then you have the individual properties as well. From what I'm hearing from you, you seem to be advocating for kind of an amalgamation of these plans and resources to effectively get out the appeal for Belize. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think a better word, and it's rather than amalgamation, I think it's certainly coordination. The ministry the ministry is certainly engaged, as is the BTB and is the private sector. The PR and marketing agency, the Zimmerman agency, that has contracted as our outside marketing agency. They seem to be, let's see, how should I put it? I think they're well in tune. I think they have good ideas. And I think the lead has to come from the ministry and BTB. And all we're saying is when those marketing plans are established, let's give the private sector a seat at the table, and let's try and get all the buy-in we can. So if a specific campaign has been established, we can then, as individual properties in the private sector, we can join that campaign and make it that much more effective. It's kind of you need to act as a force multiplier. Yeah. Well, all the bang for the buck that we can get.
I mean, you were the newly elected president of the BTIA. What is the status of the relationship with BTB? As we know, we're a month and a half after general elections, and there are changes that are taking place. Have you been able to meet with representatives of the ministry, or have you initiated that conversation as yet?
Marlene, we have been meeting with the ministry from day one. Minister Mahler is, as you know, he has a strong background in the tourism industry. He was engaged from day one. And the team that he has established there, certainly with the CEO, with the CEO Solano and BTB Chairman Evan Tillett, they are a very strong team, and they are, as I said, the word I like to use is engaged. I think, like many of us in the private sector, they put their head on the pillow at night thinking about how tourism can recover, and when they wake up in the morning, the first thing on their mind is what they can do to see the industry recover. So I have absolutely no problem. I think it's a breath of fresh air, and I think they're going full speed in the right direction. This is not to say that, in the future or over the course of the way the private sector works with the government, this is not to say that, we're always going to be 100% on the same page, but at least the fact that the ministry and the BTB is willing to work with us and solicits our opinion and at least listens when we talk, so far so good. I'm very optimistic about that relationship.
That is a promising start. And speaking of the advocacy that the BTIA does on behalf of its members, you've made quite a few. The association has made quite a few suggestions just in this past year alone. And I want to talk a bit about those. One of them has been looking at financing, because where some properties are able to get some business, as you rightly noted earlier on, some have not opened. Smaller businesses have not been able to offer their services. And so you have spoken about being able to have some line of credit open for them to be able to access. Tell us about the update on that particular point.
Well, the main areas that we focused on were certainly DFC and Bell Trade as well. Mm-hmm. Both of those programs have been successful to a point. Dozens of businesses have accessed loans, large loans, medium-sized, small loans, and grants in the case of Bell Trade. I think where it could have gone a little better is these institutions were not necessarily geared to this kind of sudden emergency lending. Mm-hmm. And all the procedures that you go through when you, for example, when you try and get a DFC loan, it's very complicated. There's a lot of paperwork. There are collateral issues. So the main thing we're hearing from those people who applied for loans and either didn't get them or dropped out midway through the process, they either didn't have sufficient land collateral, for example, or the banks that they were borrowing from already had their assets tied up as collateral and were reluctant to let the DFC or Bell Trade, let's say, take a second mortgage. So these are details that we would certainly like to see the path to successful borrowing be made simpler. We also, of course, we'd like to see a greater level of funding at lower interest rates be available. But on the other side, I think one thing that the lending programs did, they presented a competitive alternative to the commercial banks. And I think in some cases, the fact that you could apply for a 6% DFC loan made the private banks become a little more liberal in terms of the amounts they would lend and the interest rates that they would charge. So I think in balance, it was both of these programs were good, and we'd like to see them continue, but perhaps be a little bit more liberalized, because it really is survival that many businesses are talking about.
Well, from a commercial perspective, I note that the IDB Invest has also forwarded monies through the Atlantic Bank, for instance, for medium and small enterprises within the tourism industry. So maybe that too is a plus in terms of stakeholders accessing funding?
I would hope so. Again, each business faces its own problems in a different way. Businesses that are heavily leveraged, that owe a lot of money to banks or other institutions, have to behave a little bit differently than operations that are much less in debt. But certainly the only way we're going to get out of this, and you've heard me say it a million times, is that you can't have tourism without tourists.
Yeah.
And so we've got to focus on that issue. How do we get more tourists into Belize? Yeah. One thing we've certainly been working with the ministry and BTB on is further simplify and relax the entry requirements for tourists to come into the country.
Well, I'm glad that you brought that up, because I know that at the last AGM that you guys had, the Minister of Tourism was present, and he presented as well on some of those very same issues that you're discussing with respect of the PGIA and all the various measures that are put in place, and trying to see how they can simplify that.
Yes, we have advocated hard for that position, and we have made suggestions to the ministry. For example, one was the lengthening the window in which visitors would be able to present their PCR test. From the start, it had been 72 hours. Mm-hmm. Now, if you keep up with the news in the States, because of the huge demand for testing in North America, the ability to be able to schedule and get the results of a PCR test within 72 hours of your arrival in Belize is very difficult, if not impossible. Mm-hmm. So we lobbied for a wider window. We asked to change that 72 hours to as much as 7 days. In the end, Cabinet, in its wisdom, decided to expand it by one additional day to 96 hours. Mm-hmm. It's helpful, but we think that window still needs to be opened wider. Also, another good thing is the use of the rapid test, and that's a great improvement as opposed to the PCR test. The rapid test is much, much easier to get. And no doubt, as the technology improves, we have to keep our requirements in line with developments and the current situation. In other words, the whole thing characteristic of COVID-19 has been the ability or the fact that the situation changes every day. And we have to gear our policies to what's happening and what we think is going to happen rather than what happened yesterday, last week, or last month. So it's really a matter of staying on the ball. But, you know, governments don't move quickly. The Ministry of Health has its responsibility to guard the health of Belizeans. And sometimes that priority is somewhat at odds with what we in the industry would like to see. But what we're asking for is let's look at the numbers, let's look at the odds, and try to make sense of it all in view of the need for the economy to recover.
You know, I'm sure as viewers listen to this and they hear of a proposal to lessen restrictions at the Philip Golson International Airport, it makes them nervous. We are still in the midst of a pandemic, and while some countries are lucky enough to be at the vaccine rollout phase, we're not there yet. How do you communicate, or what is your message in terms of being able to find that balance between ensuring safety but still allowing room for recovery, economic recovery, that is?
Well, first of all, Marlene, we have to look at the science and we have to look at the facts. I think at one time when we had virtually no cases in Belize, our big concern was, well, let's shut down the airport, which was a wise decision at the time. But that our main concern was people coming from outside to infect us.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Is now, if you look at the situation, everyone coming into Belize from outside through the PGIA has had a negative test. Okay, so what is the danger if the vast majority of visitors are proven COVID-free? When you look at the existing population, you just a few minutes ago talked about the statistics. Mm-hmm. The incidence of COVID-19 in Belize it's a multiple of hundreds over what the odds are that a visitor is going to bring in COVID-19. So there is absolutely nothing to fear from COVID-19 being brought in by tourists into the country. And if you might say, well, if you open the window wider, the chances that someone would have contracted the virus after they had their negative test, let's say 4 days or 5 days before, yes, you are increasing the risk, but the rate of increase for that risk is infinitesimal when you compare it to COVID-19, which is raging in Belize.
Yeah, the risk in Belize, yes. Now,
so if you look at it from my point of view as a hotelier, I've got two reservations. One is a visitor, a couple from New York, and the other is a couple from Orange Walk. Which set of visitors am I more concerned about? The couple come from New York that has already tested negative 96 hours ago, or the couple from Orange Walk who has never been tested and COVID-19 is raging in Orange Walk?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a practical consideration.
Yeah, I'm not afraid of my tourists from abroad. I'm more afraid of our tourists from Belize. And we love and we welcome our local tourists, but I'm just saying, if you look at the numbers and if you look at the science, that is what concern should be.
So let's talk about the situation that's unfolding internationally. As we learn more about the virus, we now know that there are mutant strains that have been detected, and specifically the one in the UK there's quite a buzz about it because of how highly infectious it is. We have seen countries now move towards imposing a ban on UK visitors or tightening restrictions specifically for tourists from UK. What is the BTIA's position on enforcing bans or tighter restrictions on people from countries where there is a concern about COVID, like in the UK where there's this particular strain?
Marlene, I can't give you the BTIA's position because we don't have a position, as this is such a recent development. But I think in general, I think it's been shown that these types of travel bans don't really work in the end. It's like when they're talking about when the United States is considering this ban. The fact is, the scientists have pointed out that this variant of the virus almost certainly is already in the United States, not just the UK, it's South Africa as well. That this variant is probably all over the globe already, and it doesn't make the virus more dangerous. Remember, it makes it spread easier.
Yeah.
But I don't think a travel ban on South Africa or the UK or any place, I don't think it really helps Belize, but it will affect us because if you look, that visitors from Europe, for example, they cannot come directly to Belize. They pretty much have to go through the United States. So if the U.S. declares a ban, that's going to affect us.
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah. And that's why I ask if any country, because we know that we don't have to worry about anyone flying directly from Europe to Belize. They'll have to pass through another country to transit. So looking forward, though, we have seen where there have been tightened restrictions across the country. And I know that there were certain accommodations made for the hotel sector as well. Tell me a bit about what it's been like having, before the airport opened, you talked about the strain on policing tourists to follow restrictions. What has it actually been like since you've had a couple of months of practice?
I think the industry has dealt with that aspect of it pretty well. I think the curfew has changed the character of the business a little bit. It's difficult for restaurants, for example, even restaurants that are associated with hotels or those that are not, have to clear people out of your dining room, let's say by 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
It changes the character of the business. But this time of year it gets dark early, and so once it gets dark at 5:30, people just start eating earlier. I don't think we have great quarrels with the curfew. We're Belizeans too, right? And we know that we've got to safeguard the country. And the fact is, as much as I hate to say it, we're not a tremendously disciplined country, and a lot of our people are not following the social distancing, the mask wearing, and we're seeing the results of it in the high rates of spread of infection. And how we like to behave during holiday periods, and for such a small country, the effect of a single super spreader event can be devastating, and we just do not have the medical capacity to deal with a super spreader, the result of a super spreader event. It's serious business. Yeah. Close to 250 Belizeans are dead. Yeah. That is something we've got to think about it.
Yeah. Well, we want to continue on that vein and also talk about the travel advisories that have been placed on us as a result. So what we'll do is take a very quick break, and when we come back, we'll continue our conversation, taking a look at the tourism industry through the eyes of the BTIA, and that's coming up in a few. Please stay tuned.
Technology is ubiquitous, and it's transforming how, when, and where we work. Fulltech Systems is placing award-winning devices in the hands of information workers, allowing them to work without compromise in a world without wires, to innovate, create, and to maximize productivity anytime, anywhere. Satisfying the needs of the desk-centric remote and field worker and every other worker in between. We are providing the industry's best devices to businesses going through the process of digital transformation. Partner with us today to provide the solutions that will allow your employees to work effectively and efficiently to enhance your customers' experience. Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service.
Have a holly jolly Christmas this December with NextGen. Contact us today to sign up for free service installation or reconnection and receive 1 month free on your acquired service. Celebrate the spirit of the season by entering our grand raffle. This month, new and existing customers can enter a chance to win a 40-inch smart TV or up to 3 months free bundled service with a Debo 3. Visit our office for a chance to win today. Our raffle will be drawn live on the national channel. From our NextGen family to yours, we wish you peace and joy throughout the Christmas season. NextGen, powered by Central TV and Internet. If we are only as strong as our families, businesses, institutions, and the communities that surround us, then by giving businesses the power to grow, entrepreneurs the ability to expand, and by giving our families the right to own something. The Belize Bank gives you the power to build a nation, our nation. We are stronger together. The Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.
And we're back, and of course we are continuing our conversation. If you're just joining us, we have with us all the way from Placencia, the president of the Belize Tourism Industry Association, Stuart Crone. And we are continuing our conversation about the impact of the pandemic on tourism and the outlook for the upcoming year. Stuart, before we went to the break, I mentioned that I wanted to hear from you whether or not the recent travel advisory from the CDC on Belize's COVID situation has had any impact, and maybe you can share what members are reporting are some of the primary questions that tourists are asking before they book.
To answer your first question, Marlene, if you look at those CDC warnings, I think the same level of warning that they've given to Belize is probably identical to maybe 150 other countries. Okay. So I don't think that has much effect. Yeah. I think the real question is, to what extent are Americans, and really that's what our market is boiling down to, Canada has such tight returning restrictions, Canada's off the map pretty much until that policy is changed. The question is, how willing are Americans to get on an airplane to travel? That really is the ultimate question. And the difference between traveling domestically in the United States and internationally. And I think that's where, when we raise this question about ease of entry into Belize, if you're a potential tourist who has gotten over the hurdle of fear of flying, so once that person says, all right, I'm either vaccinated or I've COVID already, so I'm not fearful of getting on an airplane. The question is, well, where should I go? Do I go to Mexico, which has no restrictions, Costa Rica, that has no restrictions, St. Lucia, which has less restrictive entry requirements than Belize? In other words, visitors have a choice. And I'm not saying that we necessarily get in a race to the bottom or we stop testing like Mexico does. What I'm saying is we have to be constantly aware of the competitiveness of this market and enact regulations that are common sense. Yeah. That's all we're saying. Regulations don't mean anything, don't get us anywhere. Testing policy that doesn't really get to the root of the problem doesn't get us anywhere. And what we're asking, and this is a process that has to be under constant review.
Let me ask you
what
a
about,
question.
I was going to follow up on this one. So
Go ahead.
if, you know, there still is the gold standard certification that is necessary for people to be able to visit your hotel or your institution. You quite rightly noted that all of these restrictions were devised at a time when we didn't have active COVID cases, and so we were trying to prevent the entrance through the tourists that were coming in. The context has changed, we know that. Should it not also then be a part of the consideration that the certification of hotels not necessarily be something that qualifies you to be able to take in tourists or to take tourists on tours?
You've answered your own question, Marlene, or you've asked it as a leading question. You teed that one up for me. There was a time when the gold standard concept and the safe corridor concept, which we did not originate that several countries started that long before we did. My feeling is that concept has probably outlived its usefulness, and the whole nature of the virus globally has changed. It's really the concept of nationalism and that every country has its own policy is not so effective anymore, because this virus is throughout the whole world. Even places that were only a few months ago considered pretty much free of the virus, having major outbreaks of it. So, you know, the main thing is that all of us all over the world, Belizeans and tourists, there is almost no need for a distinction between our local citizens and the visitors that come to our country. So this effort to isolate them and separate them, which even from the beginning never made a whole lot of sense, certainly makes much less sense now. The thrust needs to be on having all of us in Belize, whether you just got off the airplane or whether you just got out of bed here in Belize, we've got to follow the science. Wear the mask, keep a distance, you know, monitor your own self in terms of how you're feeling that day. These are things that the scientists have been telling us for, 9 or 10 months now? Mm-hmm. That's the only way that this virus is going to be conquered. And there's a long way to go before the vaccine takes effect, and we still don't really know what the result of that is going to be. So nothing is inevitable here. We have to be aware at all times. So whether, you know, I feel very bad because I think independent restaurants or operators have been, and small hotels that have not been able to reach the gold standard for many different reasons. Sometimes it's finance, sometimes it's just institutional capabilities, okay? For whatever reason, they have been unfortunately handicapped, and I think we need to take steps to get our independent restaurants and smaller hotels and tour operators. It doesn't mean they get a free pass, but a lot of the gold standard requirements did not really have anything to do with minimizing the spread of the virus. They have to do with things like record keeping and stuff like that the average small operator really can't comply with.
Well, I'm glad that you're raising that as a talking point here, because when you look at what the previous administration put into place in terms of getting all of these hotels and businesses up to scratch regarding the gold standard, and those who were not eligible or did not qualify, and those who spent a lot of money qualifying themselves, and the fact that we're still only a trickle in terms of those who are coming in as visitors, that's a significant economic impact on any small business or any medium business for that matter, correct?
Yeah, I mean, you look at the cost of one electronic thermometer, it's around $150. Mm-hmm. Of hotels, you need at least 2, probably 3 of those. So that right there. But the point I'm trying to make, Isani, is that people all over the world are aware of the virus and everyone knows what they have to do. People do have their own free will. So if you're a visitor or if you're a Belizean, you want to go out to dinner. Now, if you go to a place and there's no signage that says wash your hands or social distance, there's no basin or nearby bathroom that you can wash up, there's no hand sanitizer around. I mean, come on. Knowing what you know, are you really going to go eat at that restaurant that obviously does not care about your health? You walk into the place and the servers are not wearing masks and the bartender is not wearing a mask. Do you really want to go have a drink at that place? I mean, at some point, the onus for protection of your health has to be on you.
Yeah.
So whether the place has a gold standard sign on it or not is not the only indicator of how safe you are at that particular restaurant or small hotel or whatever. So I think we need to start exercising a little bit more common sense when it comes to those standards.
Well, I mean, you've definitely put it out there, and we have heard it from the first implementation that the concern was that it was really the smaller business that were going to be the ones to suffer under these circumstances. Let's shift gear to something else, and let's talk about local tourism. You know, the push this year to get Belizeans to travel and kind of help provide some business to the tourism sector. We haven't been discussing that as much, but I know in your opening statement to members, you noted that this is, in fact, that there still has to be a focus on local tourism. Let's expand on that.
Well, absolutely, Marlene. The local tourism business has been a lifesaver for many businesses, both large and small. Traditionally, the overall tourism industry has not really paid attention to the local tourist, and certainly the pandemic has brought this into sharper focus. We as an industry need to be friendlier to our local tourists. We need to drop rates. We need to make the experience more of a positive one. We need to train our staffs in many instances that are, you know, at some places they tend to kind of turn up their nose a little bit at local visitors because Belizeans are not known in the business as big tippers, let's say, but then Canadians and Germans are known in the business as being not great tippers. So there's you know, we have to change some of our thinking, but it has been an absolute lifesaver. The stream of local tourists has not been huge, but it has been steady, and I think it served a lot of different purposes. I think a lot of Belizeans who in the old days used to vacation in Cancun, Playa del Carmen, Miami, Mahawal, even Chetumal, now look back on those experiences and say, you know what, I've got better value and better service at my Belize hotels and resorts and restaurants. And the added effect is you're helping your own country's economy. So I would hope that when this is all over, that local market is going to stay. And I think the tourism industry can help that along by looking to do things that to make it easier for local tourists to vacation in a way that doesn't cost them an arm and a leg.
Yeah, where it's still affordable.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about the trickle-down effect that we have seen from the tourism fallout, and that's been the unemployment. Properties have had to let people go, hotels are not open, their staff isn't working. Since we've started to see some business, do you know if there has been, if people have been called back to work? What's the situation? I know even at BTIA, you guys had to face letting go some people as well.
We had to let go our whole administrative staff. That was 3 people because our revenues dried up just like the revenues of our members dried up, and we have our plan and we're putting it into effect. But like everyone, we our belt. It's survival is where it's at these days. But we'll get by, and I've been gratified that a lot of our membership that had previously lapsed because of financial difficulties caused by the pandemic are now coming back in good numbers, bringing back their memberships into good stead. And that's going to help us recover as a body that advocates for the industry. It's necessary that we have the administrative ability to survive and prosper and work on behalf of the industry. But I will say this, we advocate on behalf of our members, but we also advocate on behalf of the larger industry. And it's just the hotels. We are an umbrella organization, yes, and we continue to act on behalf of all parts of the industry. And this includes the cruise industry as well. We haven't heard much from the cruise industry because everyone kind of acknowledges that with the US government banning the sailing of cruise ships until I think it's February or March now is the earliest. Yeah. We're, regardless of what some of our personal feelings are about cruise tourism, we recognize that a certain number of people
rely on it,
employed in the industry, and we don't like to see them unemployed.
Yeah. So let's talk recommendations as we close, or critical areas that need to be looked at. This is supposed to be the peak of the season, and what are some of the things that you think need to be addressed as soon as possible, or at least brought up for discussion as we head into this peak season?
Well, I mean, Marlene, we've already covered a number of them. So yes, certainly at the top of my list would certainly be to the easing of visitor entry requirements. Yeah. That's, again, going back to, you can't have tourism without tourists. Yeah. We need warm bodies in our hotel beds, in our restaurant seats, and in our vans of tour operators. So that's got to be a key thing. Secondly, I would not underestimate the importance of a campaign to make it easier for local tourists to enjoy their own country. And this takes the form of perhaps some easing of hotel tax burdens, marketing campaign, a limited local campaign, to get people to realize the wonderful things, the wonderful attributes of local tourism. Those two things are important there. Certainly the easing of financial requirements to be able to access some of the government assistance programs. We'd certainly use our moral suasion to ask the commercial banks to let them know that this industry is going to come back very strong one day in the future, and the good deeds you do now are not forgotten in the future. So I would ask the banks to kind of take a close look at where the industry is going to be in the future. Another thing is that we haven't mentioned is testing requirements. In other words, COVID is everywhere in the country, and COVID is within the tourism industry as well. But usually it's in the form of our employees coming down with the virus, just like any other business. And our employees are not getting COVID-19 from tourists. They're not getting them from our guests. They're getting them, just like all of us run the risk of COVID, from our own friends and neighbors. Mm-hmm. We need an improved testing ability, perhaps something we can take a little more responsibility for, as the ability to rapid test our own employees, so that the virus, once it gets into a business, does not spread around. There are businesses that I know where whole departments with COVID-19. You can't run a successful business when all your employees have COVID. So that's important. Even a thing like the municipalities, a trade license. Tourism businesses are just like any business, and they're subject to trade license in the municipalities. Well, you've got businesses that for the last 9 months have not earned 5 cents in revenue, yet at the same time, the municipality is banging on the door for their trade license. So they really got nothing out of the trade license in 2020 because they weren't even open for the majority of 2020. Now they're banging on the door for trade license for 2021. So if any of our mayors or trade license committees are looking at this broadcast, please have a little bit of understanding for the tourism businesses that have suffered in the pandemic, whether it's rescheduling payments, even a one-time elimination of payments or discounts. It's important. Again, these are your friends and neighbors who have been very hard hit, harder hit than any other businesses in the country. So that's another thing. And I think above all, in terms of broad policy making, again, we're asking that we try to think ahead. So right now, the pandemic is raging in our prime US market, okay? But we know that 6 months from now, the majority of residents in those countries are going to be vaccinated and ready to travel. So we try to anticipate what their needs are going to be. Okay, so 6 months from now, do we really need to have a testing protocol at the airport? Do we still need to have a travel app? Or if we decide we still do need a travel app, we need the kind of travel app that we should have had years ago that captures all the tourism data in real time, rather than have to wait till a filled out form is transposed and collated, and 3 months later we get the travel statistics. I think there's that kind of thinking needs to prevail. And I'm also confident that the people who are the decision makers in the industry and in the government, I think they're well aware of that, and we have to encourage them to be innovative in that kind of thinking and to look ahead 6 months from now.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Of course, this is one of the most critical conversations we've been having all year long, and we needed to be able to kind of get a close as we close off the year. Thank you, Stuart.
Always a pleasure, Marlene and Isani. Thank you.
Thank you, too.
All right. And with that, we're going to go ahead and take a break, and we'll be back in a few. Stay tuned.
This COVID update was brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service.
Smart got you this December with the We Kinda Christmas promotion. Starting December 4th, you can avoid the rush and be safe while visiting our showrooms to get these one-of-a-kind deals.
Devices start as low as $70 with the Evo Star Mobile. Other devices like the Nokia 2V for just $165, Motorola E6 for only $235, and Samsung A51 for $675. Check this out. The first 10 persons to purchase any of our iPhone 7s get 50% off that device. Each device comes with 50 SMS, $10 promo credit, plus 2 gigabytes of data, all for free.
Looking for tablets? Then take advantage of the Amazon Kindle 8-inch for $155. Or get a Samsung Tab A10.
All phones come with a starter pack, free SMS, credit and data, plus an extra Christmas treat of 2 gigabytes data, a package valued at over $27 for free.
Now that's We Kinda prices, and you can only get them at Smart.
The virus that causes COVID-19 may be spreading in our community. People might have the disease even if they have no symptoms at all, even when they look healthy. Because the virus needs us to spread from one person to another, we can stop it from infecting others if we practice physical distancing. That means stay at least 6 feet away from other persons. Don't shake hands or exchange hugs. Do not gather in groups. Stay home if government officials tell you to do so. Use social media or telephone to communicate. Avoid crowded and enclosed spaces. Work from home if you can. Stay home if you are sick, except to get medical care. Avoid close contact with sick people. Don't visit anyone who's sick in quarantine or in isolation. Give them a call instead. Help keep Belize safe.
Why, Tony?
Boy, Keith, what you go on, man?
Nothing much.
Just chilling.
Nothing much. But actually, because see, we kind of need to buy a stack of them plastic plates and cups from the grocery shop because they run low.
Boy, I stopped importing that thing since April 15th, you know. And I just routed the last batch, must have been like 3 weeks back, you know.
Man, do I usually have anything? What is going on?
Check this, right? Under the new law, we ban all single-use plastics, so that the cups, plates, forks, spoons, and knives, all of that. Since April 15th, can't import none of them. Starting January 15, 2021, you can't manufacture them. April 15, 2021, you can't sell them. And after July 14, 2021, if you get catch with any other thing, you will get fined.
Me never know this. I guess I have to make some changes then. I have to make the customers know that anything not available. Anyways, bro. Thanks, man.
No problem, man. Take care.
In these challenging times, the one thing that is certain is that the Belize Bank Limited is here for you. There is nothing more important than your health and safety, and we continue to make every effort to make banking safer for you. Our staff is working around the clock to make sure you can do your banking conveniently 24/7 using our mobile banking app and online banking and keeping ATMs up and running. We value your relationship with us and are here to provide the support you need. First responders are also out there 24/7. Thank you, healthcare workers, security forces, firefighters, caregivers. You are all appreciated. Stay safe. We will get through this together. The Belize Bank, our country, your bank.
It's a fact that your credit lasts longer when using Smart. During these times, we're all trying to find ways to cut costs and save the little resources we have. With Smart, it's easy to do that. It's a fact that with Smart, your credit lasts longer. You can call Smart to Smart and Smart to Digi using your promo credit, while with the other guy, you can only call OnNet, Digi, or BTL numbers. What does this mean? You get to call any national number using your promo credit. Your promo credit is free, so that call is also free. Know your facts. Don't be tricked by the other guy. Be smart and save your dollars.
Changes that 2020 has brought upon us, this holiday season is unlike any other. But despite all those changes, This year has taught us that being apart doesn't mean we can't stay connected. And that's why here at Channel 5, we adapted to keep you connected with relevant and reliable information and entertainment, as we've done for the past 29 years. And so, as we move into the new year with new norms, we promise to continue being here for you through it all. From our family here at Channel 5 to yours, we wish you health, peace, and happiness this season and beyond. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
In these challenging times, the one thing that is certain is that the Belize Bank Limited is here for you. There is nothing more important than your health and safety, and we continue to make every effort to make banking safer for you. Our staff is working around the clock to make sure you can do your banking conveniently 24/7 using our mobile banking app and online banking and keeping ATMs up and running. We value your relationship with us and are here to provide the support you need. First responders are also out there 24/7. Thank you, healthcare workers, security forces, firefighters, caregivers. You are all appreciated. Stay safe. We will get through this together. The Belize Bank, our country, your bank.
It's a fact that your credit lasts longer when using Smart. During these times, we're all trying to find ways to cut costs and save the little resources we have. With Smart, it's easy to do that. It's a fact that with Smart, your credit lasts longer. You can call Smart to Smart and Smart to Digi using your promo credit, while with the other guy, you can only call OnNet, Digi, or BTL numbers. What does this mean? You get to call any national number using your promo credit. Your promo credit is free, so that call is also free. Know your facts. Don't be tricked by the other guy. Be smart and save your dollars.
Have a holly jolly Christmas this December with NextGen. Contact us today to sign up for free service installation or reconnection and receive 1 month free on your acquired service. Celebrate the spirit of the season by entering our grand raffle. This month, new and existing customers can enter a chance to win a 40-inch smart TV or up to 3 months free bundled service with a Debo 3. Visit our office for a chance to win today. Our raffle will be drawn live on the national channel. From our NextGen family to yours, we wish you peace and joy throughout the Christmas season. NextGen, powered by Central TV and Internet.
We're back and we're moving into our second conversation for today as we find out all about a project that was launched by Life and Fashion Photography, and it's called the Top 100 Women of Worth in Belize. Of course, we're joined by the owner of Life and Fashion Photography, Brandon Caetano, and we have two of his creative representatives, Alia Tillit and Kylie Ramdas. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, guys. Good morning.
We are great. Thank you for the energy. It really does help this early in the morning. But Brandon, let's just jump into it. Life and Fashion Photography and this particular project. How did it come about?
Well, what happened is that this year, in March, I feel like we're already in 2021. Forgive me. This year in March, what had happened is that I wanted to do a top 10 woman. I wanted to find a way to feature a woman of worth. Every month, at Life and Fashion Photography, I try to do something to signify what is happening in the month. right? So for September, we did Carnival. In November, we did that thing, Garfina Settlement Day, and Christmas, we did Christmas. So every month we try to do something different. And November was more about highlighting women who are making a difference in Belize. I was gonna only do 10, right? I work in the tourism village. So the tourism village, we had a pause, and that was the best thing that ever happened. So I increased my number from 10 to 100. I said to myself, why not do 100? Whatever I do, I want to do it big. So that's how we came up with top 100 women of work 2020. And our goal is to do it every year. And we plan to do an event. We plan to have different packages and also an award. And we want to do a special highlight through media.
How did you come about selecting these 100 women?
Well, what happened, when I first had the idea, I went to my mom, right? And my mom was the first person on the board, right? And eventually I had to set up a Woman of Work committee, right? And what had happened is that as we had, the first selection was from me and my mom, because she was telling me about people who are phenomenal women in Belize. And we also approached Women's Commission. They were one of the first persons I went to as well, for the idea. And they gave me a list of names too as well of women who are really phenomenal. So the list was kind of between me and my mom and also Women's Commission. And then as we had grown, we had started to get a lot of nominations, because I told people, I put it up on my WhatsApp and also on the message, that they can recommend and nominate people. And then we would go through an easy selection process at the time. And that is how these women would have been selected. But stepping forward into 2021, we're gonna have like a committee to really filter it, right? Because then we're gonna ask for the nominations a month before, and then that way we can really filter it and everything. And then after that, we can do so.
Yeah.
So there's a profile that comes along with these individual women?
And there is a what?
Is there a profile that comes along with these individual women for us to know more about them?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So Aliyah and Kylie, tell us about the experience so far for you. One of the things we do note is that these women come from all different sectors. You're talking about educators, you're talking about, they're involved in just about all types of work. What has it been like learning about them and their work so far?
For me, it has been really amazing. I got to meet such a phenomenal woman and heard their story and how they reached where they are right now. I really love some of the advice they gave me as a young lady. I love to see how we have women in Belize who stand up for a young woman.
All right.
From my experience, it has been amazing. These women really inspire me, really.
Is there any one particular woman that stands out for you?
Diane Finnegan.
Okay. And for you, Aliyah?
And Kylie. For mine, it would be Tanya Sanisha.
Okay. All right, so tell me why Diana and Tanya?
Okay, for me, why Tanya is because she told us her story about when she was just starting makeup and how far she have reached, about all the times people turned her down, and that still didn't stop her from being the makeup artist she is today.
Okay.
Tanya is amazing. She is really amazing.
She is, and she does have a fantastic story that a lot of people don't know. And what about Diane stood out for you, Kylie?
Aliyah.
Sorry, Aliyah. Yeah.
But Diane Finnegan stood out for me because of politics. I personally wanted to join politics, but she inspired me more. So how about that?
And one thing, what I tried to make sure was that we had a balance of people in different political arena, because we're not a red nor a blue, right? We had Candice Fitz, we had Zanana Moya, we had the young lady Diane Finnegan. So we have people from both red and blue. because we don't ever want to be labeled by politics or by religion. Okay.
Yeah.
We also have people from the in the world of religion too as well. Yeah. So that is one thing we had tried to ensure that we kind of balance. We seek a balance.
So Brendan, you then go in and you photograph all these women, and I'm sure it's probably a really interesting experience as well. When you contact them and let them know that you want to do this profile, tell us about what their reaction is.
Well, it has been a lot of people they're always honored, and I think that a lot of them they're probably used to it. But at the same time, too, as well, it's like a beautiful thing. So they receive it with a lot of humbleness. Some of them, like especially like some of I realize that like the more things a woman have done, the more they use the word humble, right? I'm not so sure if we'll get that from the men, you know. But I do someday plan to do something for men. But my goal is to like complete this and like every year, like, let it become bigger and bigger until it comes to the vision that I want it to be before I jump into something else. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And where have you been sharing this, the women that you've selected so far, their profiles and photographs?
I've been doing so on the Life and Fashion page, and I've also been featuring them also on the newly established Woman of Worth page as well. Oh. It's called Whoa Belize, Woman of Worth.
So what has been the most rewarding part of this experience so far?
The goal and the vision.
Yeah.
The fact that it is coming alive. You know, my initial goal was to find a way to highlight women that are doing a phenomenal thing in Belize. Women that are making Belize a better place. I feel like we have a lot of women, and the thing is, it's not like woman that is always on the screen that is also a woman of work. Some of them are women that are just house moms, making a difference in their own way. There's a lot of phenomenal women in Belize that are doing their own thing in all sectors of society. It can be business, it can be religion, it can be in the area of paralegal, it can be in education. There's a lot of women doing their own thing. And for me, the biggest reward is seeing that, you know, that we're able to know that, okay, this country is not where it is only because of politics. It's not where it is only because of, you know, a certain era, right? There's a lot of sectors that come together to make Belize what it is today. And so that's what I'm glad for. There's a phrase that I love that says, by ourselves, we can move faster, but together we can move farther. And so I believe that it took a lot of hands into Belize that made Belize what it is today.
So you've already profiled all 100 women, or people can go to the page and see all of them?
Well, we are still completing the 100. We're at, I think, 89. So it's just I already have all the pictures, so it's just to complete the pictures off and then to post them up before the year is end.
All right, well, you have a few days before year's end.
Yes.
I know, some people are probably difficult to get photographs of.
Huh?
I said, has it been difficult to get people?
Well, sorta, especially since the COVID-19, because what had happened is that we had started in March, and we did 60 plus women in March already, and then we had to slow down due to COVID-19. COVID-19 had kind of shift things around, so we didn't start shooting again until November.
Wow.
Right? And we even have the phenomenal Marlene Coyar. She's probably one of the only one that's left to shoot in this year. Right? But one thing that...
Put me on the spot. I know, I've been rescheduling from March. I'm terrible.
Yes, absolutely. Because Marlene is an amazing woman as well, and we all know that, right? And so one thing that I plan to do, though, is because what I really wanted to do with this event is to do a whole conference. I wanted to do a retreat and everything. And so I'm thinking about pushing everything here into 2021 and to really give all the women that Woman of Worth feeling that I really want to give them. You know, because there's so much to it, right? I wanted to really set up a talk show here for the whole month and, you know, have like 5 women every day, you know, talk about their self and talk about what it took for them to become who they are. There's a whole lot that I want to do. So I might just use this 2021 to really push everything in, you know, the conference and the forums that I want to do, and also the retreat that I want to do for the top 100 women of work from this year, right? And then start afresh in 2022. That's what I do plan to do.
Well, you have definitely made the start in being able to let people know that you have found these women. I love that you found people from all different backgrounds and contributing in many different ways, because you're right. A lot of times people who are more in the forefront are the ones that get recognized, but there's so many women I know who work hard behind the scenes that do deserve to be recognized. So thank you for doing that. And people can find these women on Women of Worth Belize on Facebook?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Well, Brandon, Aliyah, and Kylie, thank you for joining us this morning and telling us all about what you've been doing, and best of luck. We do hope that this project manifests into everything that you had first imagined, and we look forward to seeing it as well.
Amen.
All right. Stay safe, everybody.
God bless.
All right.
Take care.
There you have it. Women of Worth.
Yes, 100 of them.
That's right. And there are many more in Belize. I think that's what's great about this project. You know, who they identify this year is just the start. There'll be so many other people who we can find out more about their stories through this project. So best of luck to Brandon and his team at Life and Fashion Photography. We're going to go ahead now and take a break. And when we come back, we'll be doing a wrap-up. So please stay tuned.
In these challenging times, the one thing that is certain is that the Belize Bank Limited is here for you. There is nothing more important than your health and safety, and we continue to make every effort to make banking safer for you. Our staff is working around the clock to make sure you can do your banking conveniently 24/7 using our mobile banking app and online banking, and keeping ATMs up and running. We value your relationship with us and are here to provide the support you need. First responders are also out there 24/7. Thank you, healthcare workers, security forces, firefighters, caregivers. You are all appreciated. Stay safe. We will get through this together. The Belize Bank, our country, your bank.
It's a fact that your credit lasts longer when using Smart. During these times, we're all trying to find ways to cut costs and save the little resources we have. With Smart, it's easy to do that. It's a fact that with Smart, your credit lasts longer. You can call Smart to Smart and Smart to Digi using your promo credit, while with the other guy, you can only call on-net, Digi, or BTL numbers. What does this mean? You get to call any national number using your promo credit. Your promo credit is free, so that call is also free. Know your facts. Don't be tricked by the other guy. Be smart and save your dollars.
back and we're wrapping up our show this morning. I want to go back to a bit of what Stuart Crone mentioned earlier regarding the state of the tourism industry as we are in what would ordinarily be the high season. There's a bit of work that lies ahead for all stakeholders in the tourism industry, from the smallest to the largest investors, and there's a role to play for all of us as well in trying to resuscitate the industry, which means then that not only do we need to play our individual part as citizens of this country, but in terms of the government and in terms of the private stakeholders who are very much invested in the industry, there's quite some work to do. There have been standards, measures, and what have you, but as he rightfully said, you can't have a tourism industry without tourists, right? That's right. The most important part of it.
That's right. You know, and I think that with the development of the vaccine, as Stuart rightly said, you know, there's a lot of promise that lies ahead, but given the fact that the dynamics of how people will be looking into destinations is going to change, we do have to plan ahead for that. And so there has been a change of management within, well, of course, there's a change of government, and so there are many other people, new faces who come in, and I hope that they have been working. I'm sure they have. I guess the point I'm making is I hope that there isn't a total undoing of what has been put in place, but perhaps a rethink for moving forward, because this isn't the time to kind of try to figure out how to do everything over again, but to build on what has already existed and just get us forward to the point where we can be able to benefit when people are a lot more comfortable traveling.
And what makes this such a fluid and dynamic situation is because I can recall several months ago when there was the projection that visitors would be returning en masse this time of year, as opposed to, let's say, in March when everything went completely still. Now we're looking at June of next year. And so it's like the goalpost, in a manner of speaking, continues to be moved, but it's not of anyone's doing. It's the fact that, you know, it's just the nature of the pandemic and what its effects are on the way people move around in terms of leisure or for business.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so, and I do appreciate Stuart's call for local tourism to be, for them to be a marketing effort for local tourists as well. I think Belizeans have greatly benefited from the reduced rates that we saw this year. And it is a very important one. It has always been important for us to be a part of the tourism product here as well. But even more so at a time where there is limited business, and because we ourselves don't get to go beyond our own borders as well. So that's still a very important conversation. As we were saying during the break, though, I think as we close off this year, because we're really preparing for the end of 2020, when you put things into perspective, there are three main topics that need to be discussed, looking at where we started and where we are now. One is health. Because this is a health-based issue. The second is economy, and the very biggest impact has been on tourism. So these are all issues that we hope to be able to kind of round up the conversation as we bring the year to a close and gain some perspective as we move forward, and tourism was what got us started.
Yeah. And so the other thing is the focus on the 100 Women of Worth, which is somewhat of a unique take from a young photographer who is looking at recognizing these individuals who are selected as persons of some worth to our society and putting their stories out there.
You know, I think I want to applaud Brandon and his effort in being able to recognize women in the country. I think that he started off as a Women's Month project that has clearly expanded. And so you can be able to see the women that he's identified, he and his team have identified so far on his Facebook page, Women of Worth Belize. I do want to be careful and say, you know, not because these 100 women have been identified as women of worth doesn't mean that there aren't countless other women yet to be identified. And I do hope that they can get the same accolades as well.
Yeah.
All right, so we got to wrap up the show. Remember, if you want to contact us, send us an email at oye@channel5belize.com. You can also drop me a line at marlene_oye@channel5belize.com. Find us on Facebook at Open Your Eyes BZ and on Instagram at OYEBelize. And remember to tune in tomorrow morning at 6:30 when you open your eyes
to start your morning right.
Until then, keep your eyes, your mind,
and your hearts open.
We'll see you soon. Enjoy your day.
Open Your Eyes was brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.